Hey kids, welcome to Chapter 3, Lesson 4. The topic of this lesson is multiplying decimals by decimals. So at the end of this lesson, that's what you should be able to do is if you have a decimal number times a decimal number, you should be able to multiply that. Again, this is a no calculator chapter. You may use a multiplication table, and many of you should be showing your work on grid paper today to keep it all lined up and organized. All right, let's get started. Multiplying decimals by decimals. The first example we're going to look at is find 0.112 0.112 times 7.2. The first thing you should do whenever you're multiplying is make an estimate if you can. If you can't, especially when the decimals get really small, it might get tougher to estimate, but if you can, it's always a great idea. So my quick estimate is, again, I'm going to think money because that helps my thinking with decimals a lot. This is about 11 cents. 0.112, I'm going to round that to 11 cents. And this is close to 7. So if I had 11 cents times 7, I would have 77 cents. So my estimate is going to be 11 cents times 7 would give me 77 cents. So that's I know my answer should be close to that. All right. The first step when you're multiplying decimals is pretend there is no decimal. So I'm going to pretend like I'm multiplying 112 times 72. So I'm going to write that. Pretend no decimals. Okay, and I want the longer number on top when I'm setting up to multiply. So 0.112, I'm going to pretend that that's 112. 7.2, I'm pretending that that's a 72. So I'm going to set it up. It looks like this. 1, 1, 2. The longer number goes on top times 72. So I'm going to long multiply 112 times 72. So here's what that looks like. The pattern, and I'm going to put in some colors into this to highlight. The pattern is 2 times, I'm going to start with this 2 right here. 2 times 2, 2 times 1, 2 times 1 on this row. Then I'm going to multiply times the 7. 7 times 2, 7 times 1, 7 times 1. So let's do that. I'm starting with the 2. And the pattern is 2 times 2, which is 4. 2 times 1, 2, and 2 times 1, 2. My next row, I'm now going to be multiplying times the 7. And I have to start under the 7. So in order to start under the 7, I can either just start writing here, but what most people do is they put a 0 placeholder just so that you're starting under the 7. And then my pattern is 7 times 2, 7 times 1, 7 times 1 in this row. 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 makes 8. And then finally, 7 times 1 is 7. So all of these numbers came from multiplying by the 7. If I had a 3-digit number times a 3-digit number, I would have another row, and I would be starting underneath this place value. So I'd have 2 0 placeholders, and I'd have another row of multiplying, and so on and so on. Now I add, just like normal, straight down. 4 and 0 is 4, 2 and 4 is 6, 2 and 8 is 10, carry the 1, and I get 8064, 8064. Now, I can also use my estimate. Where can I put a decimal point so that my product, my answer is close to 77 cents? It's got to go right here. That would make this 80 cents with followed by 64, and that's as close as I can get to 77 cents. Another way I could put my decimal where it needs to be is to count the jumps in the factors. Here's what that looks like. I'm going to go back and change this. 0.112 and I'm going to start on this side, and I'm going to count the decimal jumps. 1, 2, 3 all together on that factor, and 4 on that factor. So I have 4 jumps total in both my factors. I need 4 jumps in my product. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where my decimal point goes. So you can use, if you're able to estimate, that's one way to place your decimal where it goes, is to make it as close to your estimate as possible. Another thing you can do is count the decimal jumps. And that's what this is called. I'm going to say count the decimal jumps. And then those have to match your product. 4 jumps in our factors, 4 jumps in our product. Let's look at one other example before you practice. This one, we're going to look at find the product of 2.7 times 1.35. Again, if you can estimate, make a quick estimate. I'm going to call that 3. I'm going to call this close to 1. My estimate, 3 times 1, my answer should be about 3. Again, my first step is to pretend there's no decimals at all. So I'm going to multiply as if it's 27 times 135. I want the longer number on top. So I want 135 on top, 135 times 27. And my pattern again is 7 times 5, 7 times 3, 7 times 1 on this row. So 7 times 5 is 35. I put the 5 here and carry the 3. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 3 makes 24. 7 times 1 is 7. Plus 2 makes 9. Okay, and again, I was multiplying with the 7. On the next row, I'm going to multiply using the 2, and my pattern is 2 times 5, 2 times 3, 2 times 1. I want to start underneath the 2, 0 placeholder. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus that 1 makes 7. And finally, 2 times 1 is 2. So this row came from multiplying with the 2. 5 and 0 is 5, 4 and 0 is 4, 9 and 7 is 16, carry the 1, I get 3. So where can I put my decimal point so that this answer, 3,645, is close to 3? The only place I can put it to get close to 3 is right here. Now I've got 3 and 645 thousandths, which is pretty close to 3. It's as close as I can make it, putting it right there. And let's just check by counting decimal jumps. So if I go back and put in the decimal, my factors look like this. 1.35 times 2.7, and I count the decimal jumps in both factors. 1, 2, 3 total. 3 jumps in both my factors. I need 3 jumps in my product. So I start here, and 1, 2, 3. I get the decimal in the same spot as if I were using my estimate. So you can always do decimal jumps, but it's a good idea to, if you can estimate, make sure that they fit via both ways. Make sure the decimal point fits your estimate, and also count the jumps in the decimal jumps in your factors and match those jumps in your product, and you'll be double sure that your decimal's in the right place. That is it for Chapter 3, Lesson 4. I just want to show you the practice that I did. I did use grid paper. I used a lot of it, actually. Here's all my work keeping it lined up on grid paper, and I had to use the front and back. And I really had to use front and back of 2 pages of grid paper. But the advantage to grid paper is that it really keeps things lined up, keeps things organized. So for those of you that, if you can write neatly and keep things lined up, without it, you can. But for a lot of you, should be using grid paper. Okay, that's it for Lesson 4. Look for Lesson 5 coming soon. I'll see you then.